Aloha and welcome to Spirit Chat Radio. Today I'm going to be talking about 5 tips to help you on your spiritual journey, or basically 5 things that you should be aware of. I feel like they're really good tips. I think that they're something that I've been asked enough about often that I think probably a lot of people wonder about these things. So I'm going to get into the tips right away. One of the things that people ask or that you might want to be aware of, although I did just have this question asked again recently, is when you raise your vibration, basically how does that affect others around you? Um, what if I raise my vibration, will it raise my spouse's vibration? Will it raise people's vibration that I come into contact with? Well, yes and no can be the answer. So if that just left you any more confused than you were when you started the podcast, great. I'm sorry about that. But what happens is it depends on how the people that you surround yourself with, how kind of set in their ways they are with their own vibration. So some people have a flexible vibration. They move, and that's it. That's normal. They have some days that they're having a higher vibration, some that they're having a lower vibration, but they can move. They're not easily resistant to the vibration. Now those people may not have a high vibration because it may not, I mean, like all the time, they may not raise their vibration to a super high level, just because they're not thinking about it, and that's just not something that they're necessarily aware of. It's not on their agenda. They just tend to move it. It goes, it's flexible throughout the day. And other people have what's more a fixed vibration. And that doesn't mean that those people's vibration cannot also change. They can, but they tend to, they'd have to very consciously make an effort to shift their vibration. They're not like people with a flex vibration, where they're easily just kind of will go up if they're around people with high vibration, maybe go down if they're around people with low vibration. People with a fixed vibration, more of a fixed vibration, they tend to be more stubborn, and they're more comfortable at a certain vibration. So even if they and when I think about people with a fixed vibration, I actually think about people more with a lower vibration, not a fixed high vibration, because even if you're of higher vibration, you're very consciously aware of it. You're human, so you can have bad days where you stub your toe or you forgot something or you had an argument with somebody. I mean, those things are just going to happen because we're human, and then your vibration can go down, but then you're going to come back up again. So it just might be a high flex vibration. With a fixed vibration, though, those people tend to have more of a stubborn, controlling nature about them, and they tend to want to control their environment around them or the people around them, or they get anxiety. Most people with a controlling nature tend to get anxiety anyways if they feel like they're not controlling their surroundings and what's happening. So they tend to have a lower vibration, those people. And even if they do raise their vibration for a little bit of time, they will most likely just come right back down to where they're comfortable, because it's weird, but low vibrations can be just as addicting as high vibrations. There is a sense or a feeling that people get in their chest when they're around negativity, low vibration, that type of thing, that they can become sort of addicted to. And that sounds weird, but it's true. And so their vibration may maneuver up a little bit, but they're more stiff and rigid in their vibration. So if you have people in your life that have more of a flex vibration, yes, if you raise your vibration and you kind of stay of higher vibration, you're more conscious of where your vibration is, often they will just naturally follow you. They will naturally just go there. If you're around somebody who has more of a fixed vibration, they may follow you for a half a second and then they're going to be where they were again. So you'll know, because I've had people ask me about that, like for instance, a spouse or something, because it will become frustrating to you that you're kind of helping those people, or like you're having a really good time and they just constantly just keep going back down in their vibration, back down kind of miserable, back down kind of negative or whatever, that they sort of just slingshot back to where they're comfortable in their vibration. So you'll know a fixed vibration versus a flexible. Um, the flexible ones, if you're having a good day and your vibe is high, it's going to be that friend or that spouse that you go hang out with, and then they kind of jump on your bandwagon and your vibration, and they enjoy things, and you're doing it together, and you can feel this nice vibe happening. So for spouses and friends, it's good to be aware of who has a fixed vibration and who has a flex vibration, because you are not going to be able to change someone with a fixed vibration. That is something that they need to learn to do themselves. And my tip on this is, number one, kind of to be aware, and secondly, part of number one, that's really weird, but the second part of number one is to be aware of the flex and the fixed vibrations, but also that's not really your journey. That's not your thing to do, is to mess with their vibration. If you like hanging out with them, great. If you don't, and you find that it brings you down, then that's something to be aware of. But it's really good to know who has a flex and a fixed vibration, and understand that your vibration will have an effect on some of those people, flex, and they will have a not so big of an effect on other people, fixed. And kind of let it go. Like, don't allow that to be part of your journey, because it's another thing that I think that people are kind of unaware of, or they sort of dismiss. When people become on a spiritual journey, they want everybody to feel better. And so they're really excited about all these people, just they want them to see what they see, and they want them to be on a journey like they're being. And it's just that's sort of intrusive into their own journey. And so we're going to actually talk about that on this tip. So that gets into a whole nother thing. But to be aware of what your vibration does around others. It will raise some people. It won't raise others. Mismatched vibrations will become very apparent, and that's tip number 2. You want to know that mismatched vibrations will start standing out to you. So, for instance, we talked about the flex vibrations and the fixed vibrations. If you have, maybe you were of lower vibration in parts of your life, and because of that, usually people surround themselves with like-minded or like vibration people, just like they surround themselves with like-minded people. A lot of times, you will also surround yourself with like vibration people. In fact, I think that there's a saying that is kind of like, I think it's like you are, or there's studies that have been done on how you're basically the sum of the top 5 people that you hang around. That kind of makes up your makeup. It's like that energetically as well. Like, if you're hanging out with a lot of low vibe people, it's going to be really hard to keep your vibration up and whatnot, and that just happens. But often you will become aware, when you go on a spiritual journey, of a mismatched vibrations. And what does that mean? It basically means that you will become very aware of anybody. If you're on a spiritual journey, you're obviously raising your vibration. So you will become very aware of other people in your life who's probably may have been in your life a long time. Many times that's the case. You'll become very aware of their vibration not matching yours anymore. If they are not on a same journey with you and they have a fixed vibration, you're going to become very aware that things will feel different and they will feel odd with somebody. I know I did a podcast on this, about losing people in your life when you're on a spiritual journey. But that can be a very odd thing, because people many times will just fall out of your life. You will have less in common with them. They will be sort of uncomfortable around you, because they can feel, whether they are acknowledging or not, they can feel that your vibration is not matching theirs anymore. And anytime that happens, it makes people uncomfortable. That is why sometimes when somebody's having a bad day, This will usually happen with spouses, and somebody's having a good day. You may find that your spouse, like say you had a good day, your spouse did not, they may come pick a fight with you because they are uncomfortable around your high vibration and they want to pull it down to where their vibration is, because then that makes them feel comfortable. Then maybe they make you all mad and then they're nice again. It's a weird thing. But mismatched vibrations is something that you'll want to also be aware of and understand that you will probably have people fall out of your life when you're on a spiritual journey. So one is to be aware of people with flex and fixed vibrations, and two is to understand people with fixed vibrations most likely you won't have as much in common with. You won't find that you want to hang out with them. They will not want to hang out with you. It's not just that your vibration's raising and you're going to ditch them. It's more that even they're like, yeah, I'm not down with this. I'm not enjoying hanging out with you anymore, even if their vibration is low. So mismatched vibrations will become very apparent. Number 3 is many times you will notice and find that as you're on a spiritual journey, your perspective will change. And a lot of times that's hard for people with spouses and loved ones, parents, children, whatever, whose perspective stays the same. And so what I want to talk about on this in particular is this doesn't necessarily have to be a difficult shift, this perspective changing thing, because I have a lot of people who will say, well, I'm on this spiritual journey and I'm really super excited and I want to share it with my spouse or, my loved one or, whoever, and they're just shutting me down and make me feel really bad about it because they're not sharing this new perspective that you have in life. I've said this before, I'm just going to say it again. I feel like people's spiritual journeys should really be their own spiritual journeys. If you have loved ones and family members or friends or whatever who share your new journey, or they're maybe on their own journey, and or they are open-minded and their perspective is very open-minded, then that's one thing. And you can certainly share, but if you're one of those people, you're probably not even caring about this tip. However, you would not believe how many times I hear that they have shared their new, journey and perspective with their loved one or spouse or whoever, and they get discouraged because that person's perspective has stayed the same as where they were, and they're not seeing or being open-minded to their new spiritual journey, and they're like frustrated because they feel like, well, we're not connecting on this level. You can still connect with any loved ones and family members without talking about spiritual stuff. Like, you really can. If you're on a new spiritual journey, it doesn't have to be their spiritual journey. I sometimes I feel like people on a spiritual journey, they kind of make it sort of unfair for people who are not interested in going on a spiritual journey. And I know why they do it, because you get excited about your new spiritual journey. You want many times when you start seeing really cool things happen, you want to share it. You want people to feel like you. But if other people aren't open to it, they have to sort of come to that realization on their own to want to join you. And the interesting thing is, for people who don't share their new perspective, maybe they're surrounded by loved ones or people who they know would be more closed-minded. Here's what the interesting thing is. They actually will find that people will be more curious by just watching changes being made in that person's life. Like, wow, something seems different about you, or you seem really happy, or your life seems different. You've been making some changes, and they are then more curious just by watching you blossom and grow and change and shift before their eyes. They're especially more curious if you don't try to bring them on the journey or drag them kicking and screaming. So that's way more effective, especially if you're around people, like I said, who might not be responsive to some of the stuff that you're learning about. is just allowing them to come along the journey, or like on accident, I guess I would say, watching you and then going, hey, what have you been doing? Like, I want to do what you've been doing. Have you been exercising? That's one of the things they'll say sometimes, which is really kind of funny. So it's okay to have your perspective differ. It's okay to kind of be on your own journey without sharing it with others. You can still experience a wonderful journey. You can still move forward and enjoy all the things that you're learning, and you can even see really cool things happen. I guess I'm not really entirely sure why people always feel the need to share it, other than I know they want other people to be excited about it, but I mean, and maybe change their own life. But I feel like it's a personal thing. I feel like it's something, and I feel like the people who are in your life, it should be a personal thing for them too. So it's kind of like religion or something, it's just like something you should be able to have your own personal perspective and views on. And if you're like-minded, great. Or if they become interested, great. Then you can kind of, express to them what you've learned or what you've been doing. So I find that is something to be aware of. And I just want to express again, you don't need to drag others along your journey, or be forceful to them to be on your journey or see what you're seeing. That's why we have the groups too. Some people will be like, well, I want to share what I'm learning, and I feel like I don't have anyone to share it with. That's why I created with the higher purpose learning group, which if you're not in, you might want to check out. You just go to the www.keystothespiritworld.com, and in the right hand corner there will be something up at the top that says Spirit Community. You go ahead and click on that, and then you have to be approved to get in the group, because it's a private group. But it's a safe place where you can talk about all the spiritual stuff that you're learning and not even have to worry about talking to anybody else in your life. There's tons of going on over there. There's lots of people to talk to. We have lots of discussions. And that's essentially why I created the group, is so people had a safe place, especially when they didn't have other people in their life who they felt like they could share their experiences and journeys with, because it does get pretty exciting. But you don't have to. You can be married to the same person, and you can have the same people in your life and still, move forward on your journey. Your perspective does not have to be the same. The only time where this will kind of cause a problem with, even these first tips, the raising your vibration and being around somebody who has a fixed vibration, or the mismatched vibration because they're fixed and it just stays that way, or your perspective differs, is really if we come to number 4, which is you will become a lot more of negative people in your life, and you will want to be aware. Tip number 4 is to be aware of the negative people in your life and understand how that affects you. This is naturally something that's going to happen when you're on a spiritual journey and raising your vibration, because it is really difficult to not be aware of negative people, because you will find that your perspective will be shifting, your vibration will be raising, you will be very conscientious about just feeling good and having this really positive outlook, and understanding that positive outlook seriously affects your future and the things that you're manifesting in your life. You will understand the energetic correlation, because you will start to see things shift in your life, and you will start to be more aware of your perspective shift and how things are changing. All these things will create a different probable outcomes in your life, different scenarios in your life. And when that happens, that is itself becomes addicting. When you really commit to the journey and you really start seeing things shift for you, little things to big things, that is an addictive feeling, and you will want to become usually more engrossed in your spiritual journey, and you want to learn more and just sponge up more knowledge. And you will be so much more aware of positivity in your life. You will be so much more aware of what's surrounding your life as far as just different people's outlook, your own outlook. Just you'll be so much more aware of it that when negativity enters or creeps its way in any shape or form, whether it be through the news or television, things that you're watching, or comments that people make, or just somebody's attitude and or perspective, it will begin to feel very uncomfortable when you're around negative people. And sometimes people will be like, I don't really understand. Am I more aware of it? Is it just bothering me more? Like I've been around these people my entire life or a really long time. I don't get why now it's an issue. Well, it's an issue because of a lot of the things we've already talked about, because your vibration is higher, because when you have a mismatched vibration, it's very uncomfortable feeling. From the inside, your chest, your tummy, your gut, it will feel uncomfortable when you are around somebody with a mismatched vibration than you. And that, it reminds me, I always use the magnet thing, but you know how magnets, like if you turn them one way, they connect and they suck to each other and they kind of bond, and they're magnetized to each other. But if you flip them around, they repel. It's something that's very energetically similar when you're around somebody with a mismatched vibration, and or they tend to be negative in their outlook, perspective, whatever. It's like flipping the magnet around, and it just is a super uncomfortable feeling, and you don't like that feeling. It can be almost physically repulsive and physically just uncomfortable for you. Not just mentally, but it can become like a physical, like you can feel tense. You'll feel tense, and you'll feel just you'll feel your jaw clench sometimes, or just your body clench, and it's because you're reacting to the vibration. Because when people have a negative outlook, they tend to have a low vibration. So that's something that you also want to be aware of. Is it's really important to be aware of the negativity that you're surrounding yourself with, but you will naturally be very aware of it when you raise your vibration or you're on a spiritual journey. It just will happen. And so, what do you do in that sense? Which brings us to tip number 5. And that tip number 5 is going to be in a few different scenarios, which is you really need to respect other people's spiritual journeys. So it doesn't matter what type of journey you're on, or if you're aware, or if they're aware, other people are aware of their own journey, or maybe they just call it life, because that's what most people call it. It doesn't matter if they're being conscious of life and how they're living and the choices that they're making, or that they're not being conscious of it and they're just deciding that this is what life has thrown at them, and they're kind of sitting in the back seat just allowing life to happen. You really need to be respectful of all people's spiritual journeys. So when you run across somebody who is negative, and or when you are really uncomfortable about other people's choices that they're making in life, maybe they're not even all negative. Maybe they're just people who are making bad choices. I'm sure lots of you, I'm sure you for sure know somebody making bad choices who's a loved one, or somebody who you would love to see doing well in their life, and they constantly are making bad decisions, and it's so frustrating to watch people do that, especially when you're on your own spiritual journey. You're raising your vibration. You're seeing these really cool things happen in your life. You're making the correlation to you have more control than people realize. And your perspective is shifting. And you're seeing some people who you truly love and adore just making bad choices and going on their own journey that is just seems like you're on a highway and they're beside you trying to make their own rocky road off the highway. Like they're not even journeying in any route. They take like the worst route possible through trees and hills and rocks and water and mud. You know, it's just, it can be really frustrating. And for those of you who are experiencing people like that, I have a really good tip. And it's not necessarily always easy, but it's really helpful. It's you need to pull back and see these people's spiritual journey from afar and from like a almost like a third party who's looking at their spiritual journey. So basically what normally people do is they put themselves kind of in that person's spiritual journey, and their heart is invested and they're invested in their journey. And so you get very frustrated because you want to be able to maneuver it and manipulate their journey in a way that you know it will have a more positive outcome. And it's really when you're fully invested in their journey, when you're really heart connected into their journey, it's really hard to see some of the things that they're going through objectively, and it's really hard to support things that their decisions are making. And I'm not saying necessarily support any decisions that they're making, especially if they're making bad decisions. But what I am suggesting is that you remove yourself from being in their journey and you pull yourself back and you view their journey more from an objective, non-judgmental standpoint, in a way that allows you to detach your heart from their journey. Because we're all here on, with our own journeys. Some of them are going to be better than others. Some of them are going to be bad and then they're going to get good. Some of them are going to be good and then they're going to get bad. There's patterns that change. There's some that stay consistent. But it is one of the best things that you'll ever learn is to try to observe their journey without being your heart invested. Again, it's not an easy thing to do, but it can give you a better understanding of they might be choosing these things and going through life to learn lessons. Hopefully they will be learning lessons if they're making bad choices, that you really don't have a lot of control over their journey. Because I think a lot of people who have loved ones in their life, or just, which is pretty much, I'm sure everybody who's listening to this, I feel like a lot of people are under the false assumption of how much control you have over somebody else's spiritual journey. I really, really do. I feel like that people like to alter other people's journey to make their own self feel comfortable. And while in a perfect world, we would feel comfortable with everybody's journey around us, that's essentially not the case. It's not mine. I'm sure it's not yours. I have people in my life who I definitely wish I could help guide them through another way, but truth of the matter is you cannot do that, especially when they're not asking you to. Then it's more just of a violation into what they're choosing to do with their life and journey, and then they get resentful and you get frustrated and it causes friction. So understanding that the situation that everybody's going through, which they call basically life, everybody is on their own spiritual journey. And everybody is allowed to make mistakes, and they're really allowed to make bad choices. And we really have no control over that. You can, however, have a lot of control or influence over other people's journey, and how your best shot at having any influence in a positive way over other people is to really pay very close attention to your own journey and keep your vibration raised as best you can, and keep your vibration flexible as best you can. And to not hang out with other people who you have a mismatched vibration with, who are very non-flexible, and to be okay with your perspective, and not worry about shifting other people's perspective, and understand that even if you are on a spiritual journey, you can still connect with a lot of those people. And uh, I'm going to tell you a story about that in a minute. And lastly, you will most likely have negative people at some point in time in your life. If you don't now, it's just life. We tend to be aware of the negativity, and try not to let it seep into your life the best that you can. Make choices that allows a buffer between you and negativity, and understand that negativity has a huge impact on raising your vibration. And lastly, make sure, or learn, I guess I won't say make sure because it's a difficult lesson to practice. Learn how to view all other people's journeys from afar, especially ones that you feel like your heart is invested in. Learn to detach yourself from the choices that they're making, and really just observe from afar and allow them to work through their own journey, because that's really fair. You wouldn't want them to be vested into your journey unless you ask. So that's really fair. Um, it's interesting. I probably have told this story a couple of times, but I've had people come up to me and say things, or people who are very skeptical of my abilities and what I do say, I'm really skeptical about what you do, and everything. And I'm like, well, that's great. And they're totally shocked, because, and this comes into the perspective thing. This is why I find it interesting that when someone goes on a spiritual journey, they always want to shift everybody's perspective around them. And I feel like that's kind of like, trying to shift everybody's religion around you or something. Like, I feel like it's a personal decision. And they are so taken off guard, but they're always surprised when I'm not trying to shift their own perspective into my perspective. And they've asked me about it. People ask me about it often. Well, why? I'm really shocked that you haven't tried to shift my view on psychic ability or spiritual stuff or connecting with spirits or whatever. And I'm just like, well, that's really not my job. I really don't have any desire to shift your perspective. I truly don't. And I really don't have a desire to shift anybody's perspective who doesn't believe in that sort of thing. First of all, I think people should all be skeptical of learning any of this stuff until they find something that resonates with them. And because I think there's a lot of bad information out there. We've covered that. Secondly, I really don't have a desire to shift people's perspective. My desire is, if people are interested in learning what I teach about, then I'm interested in helping you learn what I know. I'm interested in teaching you what I know so that you can take the information that resonates with you. So unless somebody's coming to me and asking me, hey, I'd like to learn more about this, I'm really not there to change your perspective. And that always just throws people for a loop. Every time I do that, they're just, and it's not a trick. It's not something that I'm just doing to kind of get them curious. I really just, sometimes I'm just there to hang out and, just be Jen. Because a lot of times this happens in social situations. And so I'm not there to change anybody's perspective. Can you imagine changing, like, that was your job somehow or something? Like, oh, that just sounds way too exhausting for me. I really just, I don't know why people want to shift other people's perspective when it comes to spirituality stuff or spiritual journey stuff, because I'd rather invest my own personal energy in just my own journey, or in teaching others who are very interested in learning more about what kind of journey I'm on. Like, that is totally fun for me. That's why I do what I do. So for you guys who are on a spiritual journey, don't worry about, like, that's one thing that I just really want to stress. Don't worry about shifting other people's perspective, or, oh my gosh, me and my husband or wife won't have anything in common anymore. Absolutely, you'll have stuff in common. Just, you have lots of other things, I'm sure, in common, like, or friends or family. There's so many things that you could probably have in common with all these people. So, like, it's okay if you keep your journey to yourself or whatever. So hopefully you found this helpful. Um, I will be back soon. I was gone a few weeks there. Sorry about that. I had a lot going on. But until next time, definitely go over to my Facebook page and check out my Higher Purpose Learning group. And like I said, you have to be accepted in, or not my Facebook page, sorry. Go to my website, Keys to Spirit World. Click on my Facebook page. It's up in the top, Spirit Community. And then you can be accepted in. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure to subscribe, whether you're on iTunes and or on YouTube. And I hope that you found this helpful. I will talk to you soon. Until next time, have the most amazing day. Aloha.